So, who won this year's Nobel Peace Prize? Actually, the committee surprised a lot of people today after handing the award to the Tunisian National Dialogue Quartet. Now, who the hell is that? It's actually a group of people, which includes a labor union, a trade confederation, a human rights organization, as well as a lawyers group. They were awarded for the group's, quote, decisive contribution to the building of a pluralistic democracy in the country in the wake of the Jasmine Revolution back in 2011, Jose. Yeah. Now, so the quartet was actually formed in the summer of 2013 when you could say democratization, the process of that, was really in danger of collapsing in Tunisia. Some could say as a result of political assassinations, also widespread social unrest. It was a mess in Tunisia, basically. Yeah. Basically, what they were able to do was establish this alternative kind of peaceful political process at a time when the country didn't have that, and it was actually at the brink of a civil war. And they actually allowed this constitutional system of government, which guaranteed fundamental rights for everyone, you know, men, women, no matter your religion, whatever. They kind of made this very tolerant society, which is seen as many as a very good example that other countries in the Middle East should follow. So now, besides the two terrible terrorist attacks that happened in Tunisia recently, the shooting at the museum, as well as the beach attack not very long ago by extremists, other than that, Tunisia's been faring very well after the Arab Spring, which started in Tunisia, as a matter of fact. It was the fruit vendor, a normal guy who lit himself on fire, gave his own life in protest of the strict government. Now, protests started right after that. President Zine Al Abidine Ben Ali quickly stepped down after being in power for 23 years. Now, we saw protests all across North Africa, throughout the Middle East. After that, we thought the same thing would come about, but it simply didn't happen.
Yeah, that was back in 2010. Yeah. The birth of the Arab Spring is spread really quickly. Yeah. And we see that the committee is pushing for an example that you can easily contrast with the situation in Syria. Syria is a very good example of the opposite way, where the Assad regime decided to just squash the opposition, and anyone that was speaking up against the government, they will be repressed. Now we see that they recognize this very holistic approach where they are putting together union, labor, trade, lawyers, and human rights, so they all work together in this political transition into a democracy that respects everyone's life. This is very, very important at a time that the region is still dealing with, you know, very low level respect for human rights, equal rights for women and men, right. Changes that are needed for the population of the area.
No, totally. So I guess you could say in a broader sense, this was the committee's opportunity to kind of, I want to say, bolster the Arab Spring, which, you know, we see didn't exactly pan out the way we wanted to in countries like Syria, Libya, Iraq, Egypt, for example, where the military quickly took over. If a power vacuum doesn't ensue, then the military is going to take over. So besides Tunisia, it didn't fare very well for other countries. And I think what the committee wanted to do was make an example of Tunisia and maybe give some incentive to other people in these countries and show them democracy is the right way for a lot of countries if you want it to be, if it can happen. Who didn't get the Nobel Peace Prize? Who else was nominated? The Pope, of all people. He was given a lot of credit for warming relations between Cuba and the U.S., kind of saying, getting in the middle and be like, hey, those guys aren't that bad. Hey, those guys aren't that bad. Be friends. It worked. So a lot of people wanted him to win it, as well as Angela Merkel was the big favorite to win, given her generosity to a lot of the refugees, taking in a lot of people in her own country, even across Europe, are saying this is not a good idea. Meanwhile, Merkel really stressed, this isn't about being a good idea, this is something we need to do. We can find the space if we really need it.
I think they did the right choice. I think the Pope, although very influential in this new relation between the U.S. and Cuba, it wasn't an issue of national security or global security where you see that there was war or impending violence coming out of the situation. Merkel, in the other hand, is having to deal with the consequence of the problem. But I think the choice that the committee did shows the importance of changing the root of the problem, that is the policy that is happening. How are you going to transition from Sharia law into democracy, into systems of of government that respect everyone's lives. I think that's a very important process. It's a very difficult one in these countries. But we have the example of Turkey, secular country that is of Muslim origin, and still they can have a standing democracy. Tunisia the same way. Thank you to this conglomerate of influences, different sectors of society that work together for a peaceful transition. I think they did the right choice.
I really agree with you too. I mean, Angela Merkel seems like the easy choice, but if you look at the broad spectrum, I think you're so right, and this is where the problem really stems. And it's important to use Tunisia as an example, and to show that the Arab Spring wasn't for nothing. Well, we want to know what you guys have to say. Was the committee correct for giving the prize to the Tunisian National Dialogue Quartet? Let us know in the comments below. And of course, if you guys haven't already, please subscribe to the Lip TV 2 for more.